All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Roe v. Wade, 40 years ago plus, and that was a decision that has changed the way of life in the United States. Unfortunately, it's changed the way of life, and it's resulted in millions and millions of abortions and abortion doctors, quote unquote, like Kermit Gosnell in Philadelphia, and many, many other Gosnells that some we know about and most that we don't even know about. And putting it all together in a great new book and the inside story of Roe v. Wade. It's called Abuse of Discretion, the inside story of Roe v. Wade by Clarke D. Forsythe. And Clarke is a past and president and senior counsel at Americans United for Life. He's argued cases before the Supreme Court and lower courts. And Clarke, good to talk to you today, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be with you.
All right. So, you know, what grabbed me first, well, there are Chapter 5, the medical myth that drove the outcome in Roe v. Wade. And perhaps we start there. And I just think that there's so much in this book. I think you're talking about in this chapter that abortion is safer than childbirth. But before we even get there, I want to talk about the misunderstanding, as you describe it, that actually led to this case being decided the way, actually even being heard, I believe, correct?
That's right. In Abuse of Discretion, I tell the story of the deliberations behind the scenes in the Supreme Court that led to the decision, how the court created it, and how we're still living with the repercussions. And it started as a mistake. The court took two cases to decide some mundane legal issues of jurisdiction, and then there was a crisis in the court with two justices retiring within a week in September of 1971, Justice Black and Justice Harlan, because of ill health. Black died a week later. Harlan died within a few months. That created a crisis within the court, flipped the balance of the court, leaving 7 justices, the first time dual vacancy since the Civil War, and 4 pro-abortion justices used the opportunity to declare a right to abortion. And as you say, one of the myths that they relied upon, even though there wasn't any evidence, any factual record, no reliable data, they assumed that abortion was safer than childbirth, and that wasn't accurate then, and it's not accurate today. And yet it continues to drive the decision and drive the courts control the issue.
So you're saying that even today there are courts that still use that false medical belief, or do they still use it without any evidence, or do they use it based on slanted evidence?
Well, it's still an assumption that drives the court's deliberations, and in fact, it's going to be back before the Supreme Court within the month in an abortion case that will be appealed to the court within the next couple of weeks from Arizona, called Montgomery versus Isaacson, involving the 20-week or 5-month limit that Arizona enacted, along with 11 other states in the U.S. House of Representatives. That assumption that abortion is safer than childbirth is at stake in that case.
Right.
So it's very relevant to the way the court continues to control the abortion issue. And
you, as you mentioned, the justice, their I guess decision that fetal viability, they expanded it from 12 to 28 weeks. That was again arbitrarily done, correct?
That's exactly right. The word viability, the notion of viability, wasn't argued by the attorneys. It wasn't asked or even considered at the oral arguments in the cases. The word wasn't even mentioned in 4 hours of oral argument. And after the second argument, very late in the deliberations, about a month before they released the decisions, the justices started lobbying behind the scenes over the scope of the abortion right that they were creating. And up until that time, the justices had considered possibly creating a right to abortion up to 12 weeks. And behind the scenes, they decided to expand it from, as you said, 12 weeks to 28 weeks, because that's back in 72. That's what they thought viability was, 28 weeks, which would be 7 months. And it suddenly appeared in one of the draft opinions, and they decided they were going to expand it that far and beyond. And that's how viability became the kind of main marker. And what's relevant about that today is that because of that sweeping scope, the U.S. ranks with only three other nations. We're one of 4 nations of 195 around
that allows
the globe.
abortion for any reason after viability. Yeah, I think it's China, Canada, and North Korea. Listen,
right.
folks, there's a lot more in this. Abuse of discretion. The Inside Story of Roe v. Wade by Clarke Forsythe. It's out today. Great luck with the book. I wish we had more time. It's a fascinating look behind the scenes at what really happened, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, for having me.
My pleasure. All right, folks, when we come back, Congressman Louis Gohmert will join us here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.